This is Romo Dunze, and you're listening to the BALLSVILLE Podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And now, your host of the BALLSVILLE Podcast, Scott Fitzgerald.
Welcome in, Ballsville gamers, to another episode of the Ballsville Podcast. I am your host, Scott Fitzgerald, a.k.a. Lose for Sale on Sleeper. And this episode is brought to you by the BallsvilleGame.com. Our games combine fantasy football and poker, which create big payouts with great odds. Welcome in, gamers. We are through Wild Card Weekend. We are off to the divisional round. I am joined by my co-host. He is Bills Mafia. He is super happy with that victory. He is Sklem on Sleeper. What is up, Sean?
Not much, buddy. How you doing?
Good. And we are blessed by his presence. Fellow Bald is Beautiful.
Yes.
West Lex on Sleeper. It is Alejandro Hernandez. Welcome in, Alex. What is happening?
How's it going, man? Good to be back. Thanks for that intro, Scott. You always make it interesting.
All right. What's up, Jerry? Jerry's in the chat. He's always popping in there. Sarah got us in here with the music. She's could possibly pop in later. She's doing some school stuff. But if not, she gave us that awesome intro. So we are going to our show is going to conduct today with some wild card. We're going to go over the analysis for the wild card weekend. We're going to get our divisional predictions, and we're also going to go over our first annual Ballsville playoff game. So
Yes.
Are you guys ready to get into it?
Yes, sir.
Always.
All right, let's get into it. All right, let's get to the first game. We got the LA Chargers and the Houston Texans. Houston won that game. Let's see. Let me get this up. Yep, it was 32-12. To me, like I always said, it's if you can run the ball, you can stop the run. It's a recipe for victory. Just to throw some stats out there, the time possession, Houston had 34 minutes. They ran 70 plays to LA's 54, but the main thing was 168 rushing yards. So they were able to run the ball with Joe Mixon. They only gave up 50, and then Justin Herbert just had an awful game, probably his worst game of his career, throwing 4 interceptions. That pretty much was the dagger in that game. I'm going to send it over to Sean. Sean, what was your eval on that game?
Honestly, man, I think it's the score doesn't really tell you the full story of how that game played out. It was a tale of two halves in all reality. And if you look at the first half versus the second half, you'd feel like it was two separate teams out there on the field for the Chargers. I don't understand what happened, but they did not come out in the second half anywhere close to the way they were playing in the first half. And they just kind of fell apart, man. I mean, Herbert really was off his game all day, which is something that's going to haunt him throughout the entire offseason, because that's going to be literally the talk of the town is Herbert. Everybody says he's got the talent to be in the top 4, but he's never been able to prove that he deserves it, and he just did it again. So, I don't understand what happened and why, but there was definitely something. And that Houston, like you mentioned, Joe Mixon, for example, he had a great second half, but if you really look at the breakdown in the first half, they held Joe Mixon in check early in the game. And had they not had a couple of red zone stops, the Chargers would have been ahead. They could have easily been ahead 17-0 going into halftime, the way that game was playing. They just kept, shutting down in the red zone. And then when the time came, Houston stepped up and changed their game plan, and their defense went off. The big three, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, and Stingley in the backfield, all three of those guys just basically stood up and said, yeah, this is not the last game we're playing this year, and went out there and made it happen. So I don't know where
that was a momentum game.
It definitely, it was a real, crazy kind of situation to watch play out, to see it go from where it was and where it started. And you can kind of feel it every time the Chargers just kept kicking field goals. You were like, man, dude, it's just, it's like they're doing good, but they're just not doing good enough. And, all they got to do is score one score and they're back in this game, and then boom, and then boom, and then boom. And then all of a sudden the Chargers were just so far behind that they were shell shocked and they couldn't even rebound.
Yeah. What's up, Jay Morris? Jay Morris in the chat. What's up, brother? Alex,
Hey.
In LA, I mean, everyone's got to be bummed out about that loss. But what in your opinion, what are the Chargers missing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they need another weapon. I think with Quentin Johnson being so unreliable the week prior, but you couldn't really call his number. It was all Lad McConkey. I mean, they did great, man. I think their demise came, like Sean's saying, in the second half, and it was a matter of just game momentum. I mean, the first, if I recall right, the first one, maybe even 1.5 interceptions were kind of fluky, and then after that, with the defense just getting worn down over time, I mean, they were just like backed up against a corner and beat down in the end. I mean, you saw how fired up Houston was, and
the turning point was the Derwin James interception, called it back into an incomplete pass. When that happened, I think that was the like, nail in the coffin.
It was a heartbreaker.
Nail the heart, boom, done. And like Chargers just kind of deflated at that point.
Hey guys, real quick, we got to give proper shout out to JM Hubs, who is our wager winner for the mini leagues, and Jerry here is actually our wager winner for the Dynasty League. So we're amongst a couple of big money cashers right here.
Yeah, Jerry's got a good point there. He's right though. Another receiver would be gigantic for that team. I mean, it would have been nice if they taken Malik Neighbors like they dang well should have. But that's a story for an off-season pod.
You guys catching all the DK that they're going to release DK rumors?
Oh, no, but I would like to see. I'd like to see T. Higgins in a Chargers uniform. I think that would be pretty nice.
100%.
Everybody wants them too.
I mean, do the T. Higgins conversation? I mean, again, these are all conversations for an off-season episode, I'm sure, but. The T. Higgins, to anywhere else, and Cincinnati with the situation that they're in between him and Chase, like, that whole scenario right there is like a season in its own to watch this offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be dramatic.
Do you think the Chargers go get another running back next year too? I mean, J.K. Dobbins is good. It definitely had a great year, but I still worry about the injury history with him. Gus Edwards, I think, is going to be finished, and then Vidal, he's still young. I think he's more of a scat back.
I think they draft a guy this year for sure.
Yeah, I think they need another tailback.
They've had such bad luck drafting late round running backs. I mean, they've every year it seems they're drafting a late round running back, and we put hope in them and nothing.
Because what do you think he goes at? Like, where's Dallas going to be sitting at right now? Dallas is at like what, 9 or 10 or something like that.
Yeah, they're like right there, top 10.
So they probably have to trade up in front of Dallas to get a guy like that. So you would be looking at like a top 8 trade. And we know how much he loves the running game.
Yeah, the running back class this year, I mean, I've kind of dipped into doing a little bit of college stuff, and this year the running back class is pretty deep. So I mean, you're going to be able to.
Dallas is 12.
You're going to get a good running back.
So they can just wait and take the next guy after Gentry on the board and be happy with that at the
you could probably get one in the late second, get a good one. So there's a lot of pretty good running backs coming out this year. I mean, you got both Buckeye running backs. Got the kid from Iowa. So there's some good backs coming out this year.
I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have a much more important discussion to be having here in the near future between the Ravens-Bills game coming up. So, I definitely think that this is a lot of stuff that we could like unpack between what we're talking about here and these offseason moves coming up.
Gotcha. Yep. No, you're right. So we'll move on. I know Sean wants to get to that Bills game, but we're going to hold off and we're going to go right to the big black and blue battle between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens. So Baltimore on top 28-14. What I looked at in this game was just obviously the running game. I mean, it to try to stop Lamar and Derrick Henry at the same time. It's like pick your poison. You stop one guy, the other guy's gonna burn you. And I mean, the Baltimore rushed for 300 yards at almost 40 minutes of time of possession. Another key thing I looked at there, 10 of 15 on third downs, which is huge. And in the red zone, they were 3 for 4 in the red zone. So the score probably could have been a lot more lopsided.
TJ Watt did play in this game, right?
He did. He was in and out of the lineup, though.
I'm just saying because I didn't see him one bit at all, so I just wanted to make sure that he was out there.
Yeah, he definitely played.
He made no impact whatsoever.
No impact. So I don't know. I'm going to go to Alex first. Alex is, how do you stop the Ravens?
That's a great question, man. The ways that they can attack is just it's kind
They
of
didn't
scary.
have Zay Flowers. They didn't have Zay Flowers.
I like how you went to
Yeah.
Alex for that question, by the way.
I wanted to go to Alex first.
Yeah, no, they didn't need him, man, and it's so crazy to watch how this offense is run and the way that everyone right now is literally comparing Lamar to Josh Allen for that MVP race. And I mean, even in our own little community here, there's a lot of discussion going back and forth because everybody knows about Mr. Bills Mafia here. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with just them throwing out the co-MVP label and doing it again for the second time in history at this
they
point.
both deserve it. They both deserve it,
just
man. I mean, look what
the co-MVP label, or wait and see the outcome of this game and then give it to the winner if you really because it's that close in my opinion. There's really no argument that you could just shut somebody down if they're going against you on it. It's really either or.
What they were showing early on in the game is they were showing TJ Watt was in the game and he was just like a missile coming at Derrick Henry every play. I don't know if you guys realize that every play he was hitting Derrick Henry, hitting him. And I think that was their game plan coming out, and it really just didn't matter. They ran to the other side, and you just couldn't stop the king, man. That was nuts.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it didn't really slow him down, and he did it. You know what I'm saying? He probably just got up laughing and okay, you hit me on a useless play. Sure, I'll wait till I have the ball, and then I'll just run your ass over when you're tired.
No, Pittsburgh had no answer to that offense. I heard that, Russell Wilson wants to come back for another year. I don't know if that's a good idea. There's already talks about,
Yeah, that's rough.
If they keep Mike Tomlin there, I think this is the time for the Steelers to lean into a little bit of a rebuild mode and get their quarterback future, get their receiver to go alongside Pickens or move on from Pickens if they can't get him to be happy and start that process.
My wife is a Pittsburgh fan, and I hear Pittsburgh fans talking all the time. And for the last couple of years, they wanted nothing more than to lean into a rebuild, and they just won't because it's a Mike Tomlin. I don't know how he's dating the owner's daughter or something because he has
the
all
winning
the
streak
trust.
thing. That's a thing. The winning season streak is a thing.
That's his legacy.
Amongst that, Pittsburgh organization in general, that's important to them.
Yeah, but if you're a true Steelers fan, nobody gives a shit about making the playoffs and bouncing in the first round. I mean, you're going to do that every year.
The organization itself does not want losing
time
season
for a rebuild.
ever. You know what I mean? The Roonies are, and I'm not talking bad about them at all. I think Pittsburgh is honestly, if not the best, one of the best ran professional sports organizations in the nation. They're amazing the way the Roonies run that place. They're great. But I don't think that they're the type that want to lean into a rebuild and have a season or two like that. They're just not that type of people. They've been able to snag the quarterbacks when they could and survive their way through it. I don't see why they're gonna, fix in their mind something that's not broken.
Yeah. What's up, Fran? Fran's in the chat. I heard she pulled a back muscle. You gotta have your husband carrying groceries. You can't be carrying groceries like that. Make him carry in the water. I know the water's heavy, so have him bring in the water. You can't be pulling it back.
So I like how he's sitting here with us while she's over there lugging groceries in and out of the door.
Yeah.
That's the dedication he has to us, Ballsville Nation.
I try to take care of her. I carry the load today. I step up, man. She's a good girl, and I step up for her.
All right. Well, there's nothing else to talk about the Pittsburgh Baltimore game. That's pretty much.
One last thing. Baltimore put a shellacking on them and stuff, but they weren't the only team to score more than 30 points this week, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They weren't.
No, absolutely not.
To be honest with you, that game got away from them when they let them score those early touchdowns. Those getting ahead by that 14-0 like they did, that basically changed the entire focus of the game, I think. And had they not let that happen, it might have been a little bit closer of a match. But
It was
that
nice to see Pittsburgh score.
Yeah.
What's that?
It was nice to see Pittsburgh score in the third, because that game was looking like it was going to be a beat down.
Yeah, I mean that was
you can the vulnerability for the Ravens is their secondary. If you can beat their secondary. So that's how they scored their
get away from
people deep
and jump over everybody and then like throw across his body for a 50-yard touchdown pass, then yeah, you can fuck them up.
Yeah,
and it's weird because they have talent on that secondary. They just
only there
never really pulled together at the same time.
Yeah, so all right, so let's move on to the game that everybody wants, at least one member wants to talk about on here. And I'm going to go right to him. And actually, I thought this game was going to be a little bit closer, but I was wrong. The Bills just put a pounding on the Broncos, 31-7.
Hey, Jerry brought something up, Scott. Do we want to talk about Deontay Johnson getting released now?
So he got released and then he got picked up again.
He got by the Ravens, but he can't play this year.
But he can't play. Yeah, he got picked up.
Wait, he's back on the Ravens after the Texans?
Yeah. Back on the Ravens.
What is going on with this?
He's had the weirdest year. I mean, I've never seen a guy.
Has anybody done that before? Has anybody gone from one team to another and then back to the second?
Not in the same year.
Yeah, I don't. Is that a record for the most teams in one season?
I think Brandon Cooks had 3 or something one year, but I might be wrong.
Yeah,
this should count as 4 because it's the same team twice. That should count as 2. I don't care. It's the same squad. You went from one to another to back to that one. That's still 3 moves. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, that's 4 fucking teams, bro. 4 different teams in one season.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like I said, I read it today and I'm like, Ravens, wasn't he on the? What happened? I mean. Because when I went on the cruise,
do they want him for insight in case the Texans win and they win? Is that what this is about? Like that doesn't make any
all
sense.
I know is he better not don't unpack your bags, dude. Deontay, just don't unpack your bags.
Did he get paid more money to come back to the Ravens this year? That if that's the case, then like, hey, bro, you got the greatest agent in the world. That fool deserves like the best Christmas present ever.
That's crazy.
I mean, his dynasty value from the beginning of the season, like Jerry said, went from a top 20-ish receiver to like nobody wants him now. So it's like, what do you do?
Not only fantasy, but even NFL feels like.
And he was getting drafted. He was getting drafted in the same round as Christian Watson. In half the leagues, they took Christian Watson. Half the leagues, they took Deontay. And the answer was neither.
Yeah,
it's terrible too because he's got so much talent there. Like he's shown that he could be like a very, very good receiver if he's like just shuts up and plays football. I don't know what it is, but it's got to be something like that. Because
it's got to be some kind of maturity.
I don't know, man. Maybe he's just good enough to do it behind the scenes in like a real low key way that just irritates the crap out of people that he's around. But I don't know. He's definitely doing something wrong because you don't do what he's doing with the talent he has and not be at least capable of getting on the field.
Right. So,
yeah, he's no Curtis Samuel.
All right. Well, so basically what I looked at in this game was obviously the Bills' rushing attack. I mean, they controlled the ball 40 minutes a game. I mean, they ran 210 rushing yards. They had 44 rushes to 17 to Denver. Denver had no running game. Basically played behind the sticks the whole time. It was, it's like I said, it's hard to beat a team when they run the ball and they stop the run. And the Bills, took care of that today. Behind their what I consider the NFL MVP. I mean, I love Josh Allen. I think between him and Lamar, I give it to Josh because Josh doesn't have Derrick Henry. I mean, he's got Cook, which is a good running back, but he doesn't have the defense like Lamar has with the Ravens, and he's carried that whole team. So this was just I thought it was going to be maybe a little bit closer because of Peyton and Bo Nix has played great this year, but I was wrong. So I'll let you take it on there, Sean. Give us your best.
He's dying to jump in.
Oh,
as much as I hate to brag over here, I feel like somebody on last week's episode talked about the fact that this game was not going to be as close as everybody anticipated. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I wasn't a little bit butt puckered throughout that whole first half. I absolutely was. But I knew that we were controlling the game. We just weren't scoring yet. And it was like they were just like they were right there, like so many times. They just didn't quite get over the hump. So I knew that it was coming. And to me, what it felt like to me was jitters. It felt like a little bit of jitters. I know this season to Josh is very like important. Like he came into this year like this is the year that I'm going to do it. I'm tired of being second fiddle. I'm coming into this year and I'm dedicating myself to everything to get this done. And so he went into this game with that kind of mentality, and I think it kind of took him a minute to settle in. You know what I mean? And you could see there was a couple of passes, especially early in that game, that he missed that he doesn't normally miss. You know, that's not his style. That pass that he overthrew with Ray Davis that got Ray Davis the concussion was not a pass that Josh normally overthrows.
That was ugly.
In the breadbasket like 6-7 times this year. You know, and so it's not something that Josh has a problem with most of the time. He's just a little jittery, and he settled down and he came out in the second half and he played the type of football that I anticipate he's going to play throughout the rest of this playoffs, which is the Josh that we anticipated to see, the Superman Josh that came out there and just dominated that entire second half. And Scott mentioned the defense, and this is something that I've noticed with our defense as they've gotten healthier over the last few weeks that, you know, people aren't really giving them a lot of credit because they did have a there where they were playing pretty bad, you know, and if it wasn't for Josh being Josh, we would have lost a couple more games. But, you know, they've kind of rebounded from that. And I think a lot of that has to do with health, man. We got Milano back fully healthy, which is a huge.
Milano.
He was good. He was good. He was good that game.
He was huge this game. I even mentioned it in the text thread that I have with the Bills fan friends that, you know, Milano looks amazing like the old Milano. And this is something we needed in our defense. And Terrell Bernard, to him, is also, you know, looking like a beast again. And those two together, if they can get on sync and play together, you know, that will be like the Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer of our middle line defense. You know, they are that type of talent level and ability to, like, you know, coexist with each other. So, you know, I anticipate that our defense is going to come out a lot different this week than they did against the Ravens last week. And I think it's just going to be the type of defense you guys saw against Denver, which, like you said, Scott, shut down their run game, which was always an issue for the Bills. You know, definitely like confused the crap out of Bo Nix throughout that entire game. You know, and not only Bo Nix, I mean, he's got Sean Payton, very experienced play caller behind him, who still didn't find a way to make things work. So, you know, that team is on a roll right now, and you know, this game is going to be probably, you know, Chiefs Bills 2021 level game. You know, like that type of like 13-second, you know, finish type of scenario. That's just going to be for the ages. Remember it always type of game. I wish I could be there for it.
Can't wait.
All right, so I'm not going to ask anything about Bills for you, Alex. Okay, but we're done with the Bills. Okay, I don't think there's anything.
Because, you know, I got a lot more to say.
I don't think there's anything you can say that Sean hasn't already said. But you got to admit, though, Bo Nix had a great year. Going into, I mean, they got their franchise quarterback. They'll probably be able to keep Cortland Sutton. So, you know, I think I might have asked this before, but you weren't on the pod. Where, like in a super flex league next year, where would you be comfortable taking Bo Nix as like your second quarterback? Like if you go quarterback in the first round, like would you be willing to, on the wraparound? Like let's say you take like Lamar number 2 or 3 or something, and Bo Nix sitting there in the second round, and would you take him over? And I'm talking if Daniels is gone, would you take him over like Richardson?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think by default, man, it sucks. Richardson's going to be such a hard call this year, and I would take him over Drake May. I would take him over the Atlanta quarterback, whoever it ends up being, Penix. Yeah. I mean,
we know who it is.
Yeah, well, it's Penix, but you know, who knows? But I think just the fact that he came out and he showed us all season that he's capable of you know, doing this with whatever receiver, just insert somebody and he'll give them the ball and put up numbers and stuff, and just the beauty of the ball he delivers, man. It's something that you can't really guarantee from a lot of other quarterbacks. So I'm thinking Well, Justin Herbert finished the year as the quarterback 12. I would take Knicks over Herbert next year in redraft, and probably in dynasty at the moment. I think that's where we're at.
I
And it
mean,
depends a lot on what they do.
what Knicks is going to get you also, is he's going to get you the rushing yards too. He can run the ball.
Oh, definitely.
So that's something
I think they lean into that more as time goes on, because this is it's very similar. Like I hate comparing anybody to my boy Josh. I hate it, but it's very similar to what like Josh Allen started out like. People didn't know when Josh Allen came into the league that he was the rushing capable of what he is. Like everybody thought Lamar for sure was going to be the next Michael Vick, but they thought Josh Allen had this big arm, John Elway, pocket passer potentially down the line. Nobody anticipated that Josh was going to be bowling people over and running the ball for 500 to 800 yards a season and 15 touchdowns and everything like that. Like that was not something people realized was coming. I feel like
I always compared him to Cam Newton.
Yeah, right. And nobody thought that about him coming out. Because I watched a lot on the quarterbacks that year, obviously being that we were going to draft one out of that group, and there was a good 5 of them that were coming out that everybody was talking about, and nobody mentioned Josh's rushing ability during the process. They talked about his inaccuracies, his giant arm, his potential was through the roof, but he was very raw and all these things, but nobody talked about his rushing.
I don't know this. So I'm genuinely asking you. Where was he taken in the draft?
7.
He was 7?
We traded up with the Bucks to get him, and I'm 90% it was 7.
Yeah, that paid off.
Yeah, it did. I mean, especially if you look at the Jets, who took Darnold at 3, I believe, or 2, was it one of the 2, and then Baker went at 1. So like they both went ahead of him.
Right. So all right. Well then, let's move on to the next game. And this game I thought was going to be a really good game, and it turned out right off the bat. This game was all about turnovers. And it's the Philadelphia 22, Green Bay 10.
Jay Morris is right. It's 9. Thank you.
The turnovers were horrible. I mean, the kickoff right away, they fumble the kickoff. Philly gets it back. It's punts it in the end zone. Barkley with his 25 carries, 119 yards. So they ran the ball. Green Bay, I'm starting to get concerned about. I know in the beginning of the year we said they could possibly have one of the best receiving cores. Now I think they may have one of the worst receiving cores because they don't have a number 1. All right, Christian Watson is that boat is sailed. Jaden Reed is a nice receiver, more of a slot guy. Romeo Doubs, he's on his 2nd concussion. Wicks is still real raw. They need to go out next year and get Jordan Love.
Wicks has Quentin Johnston hands.
T. Higgins.
Yeah, they need to get a true number 1.
T. Higgins to the Packers would be epic. If you add T. Higgins to that wide receiver room and bump all those guys down a notch, I think then you're looking at a great receiver room.
So I'll go to Sean and I'll say, Sean, do you think Philadelphia is the most complete team in the NFC?
No, absolutely not. They don't have a quarterback who can complete passes in the first half, so no.
In the first half. What about you, Alex? You think they're the most complete team?
No, not at all. I don't think so at all. I think we saw the Packers implode, and Philly only came out with 22 points. They didn't really. I turned the game off in the third quarter. I'm not going to lie.
Eagles.
What's that?
The Commanders looked better than the Eagles.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, dude. The Commanders look. I think if we didn't have the Bills Ravens on this weekend, the Commanders and Lions would be the game of the week.
100%.
Because they can win on multiple levels.
The game, like the Bills Ravens game, could turn out to not even be as good as that game. I could easily see that happening because that game has that kind of potential. Also, it really does.
I don't think the Ravens needed anything special to go out there and beat the Steelers. They kind of trounced them, and I think they're going to have the energy. I don't think the Bills had to do much to win, but they showed like so much effort and heart that you could tell how hungry they are. We saw the hunger from the Texans, and you saw the hunger from the Commanders, man. I mean, it was, and the Rams don't short the Rams either, man. They played so hungry. They're all juiced up.
Well, and that leads us to what Scott's talking about. I mean, the Rams could beat the Eagles, and the Eagles are done.
It's
and then,
conceivable.
do you feel like they're complete at that point if they can't even make it past the divisional round?
No.
Okay, so I'll stop you guys there. I'll say, look,
Let's go.
The Eagles sat all their players week 18. I think this was more of like kind of a lull getting back. They didn't get A.J. Brown the ball. And, you know, I mean, even though they only scored 22 points, I mean, the Packers only scored 10. Packers are a good offense. I mean, Jacobs can run the ball. Love can get the ball to receivers.
Sorry, Scott, I'm going to read this book on the sideline while you finish that.
Go ahead. I mean, the Eagles still have a really good defense. So,
well, didn't the Eagles just lose Nakobe Dean?
Yes, and that's a huge loss right there. So
big loss, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens going into next week. But I think this game was more of a kind of like, okay, let's get our sea legs under us. We had a week off. You know, you got A.J. Brown on the sideline reading books. So I think going into this week, they're going to take this game a little more serious. They got the Rams coming in. We'll preview that game in a little bit. So let's jump over to the game, a game that I think besides that game, I think besides this game, there was, you know, the Minnesota Rams were a good game, so I think a lot of people wanted to see that game. But I think a lot of people wanted to see how Jaden Daniels was his first game on the road, going to the pirate ship, fire the cannons, going down to Tampa Bay. And I think, in my opinion, he escaped. The Buccaneers had this game.
Scott's only saying that because this is the game that knocked him out of the playoff game, guys. That's why he's saying that.
Well, if they would they started to run the ball a little bit with Bucky Irving. They actually outrushed Washington in the game. Some people might not know that, but they got away from it. They stopped running the ball. They kept throwing. And that jet sweep where they fumbled the ball was that was the game right there.
Huge.
You get the ball, you just make a fourth down play, stop Jaden Daniels, get the ball, you're up, you're going to drive, and right away you fumble the ball, give them right back at the 15-yard line.
That was the momentum.
That was the momentum. And then
that's the Commander season, baby. They've had the lucky lady all season, baby.
And then the Bucs when the Bucs got the ball back again and they were driving, they had that miscommunication with the snap count, and they on 3rd and 1, they didn't make it, so they had to settle for the field goal. Not saying they were going to score a touchdown, but it would.
How bad do you think that poor rookie center feels right now?
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I mean, that poor kid, dude, I feel for him, man. He's going to have to spend the whole offseason feeling like he's the reason they didn't continue on in the playoffs. Like, I feel so bad for him.
But
that's the pressure that makes diamonds, man.
Yeah. So as much as I think that Jaden got a gift this game, and the Reds and the Commanders are moving on because of Tampa's mistakes, Jaden Daniels, he is the real deal. So, I mean, I'm going to go over to Sean and say, Sean, before you do your breakdown, where's Jaden Daniels going next year in Dynasty startups?
Oh, dude.
Are you going like Josh, Lamar, Patty, Hurts, then Jaden? Or is he going?
I think I'm going Josh, Lamar, Jaden.
Right? Sounds right, huh?
I think I'm going Josh, Lamar, Jaden, man. I honestly do.
What about you, Alex?
It's hard to argue against that. I mean, it really is. Who else? I mean, if A.J. Brown walks, then Hurts is out of the picture. Mahomes isn't doing it. I mean, everybody else is getting a year older. You know, here's a rookie that came out and put himself among the top 5 at least. You know, it's not Kyler Murray. Who else is going to step into that role? I think he might be the quarterback 3 in Dynasty right now.
Now, do you think now, Sean? Do you agree with me that you think the Bucs lost this game, or did the Commanders win this game?
I hate to say a cop-out answer, but I think it's both.
Bucs lost it.
I think they lost. I think the Bucs gave them the chance, and the Commanders grabbed it and ran with it.
Got you.
Bucs just made just enough to mistakes to lose the game. Baker even looked sloppy at the end.
The reason I say that is because they had the ball with like just over just under 5 minutes left. I think they got the ball back. The Commanders did with a tie game, if I'm not mistaken, and they did the veteran style drive and ran that clock down without any kind of over urgency, I should say. They had urgency, but not too much urgency to be able to take that entire game down to zeros. Like that's not something that a lot of young, quarterbacks would do. Young quarterbacks in that situation would, go for the long pass from time to time and be more rushed and feel more urgency in the situation. Like they need to get down there, they need to score. And Jaden was like, no, man, I'm just going to matriculate my way down this field and take the time off the clock we need to take off so that they don't get the ball back. And that
35 pass attempts.
That's Washington winning it. So I can't say that the Bucs gave it to them. Because Washington won it. The Bucs had the opportunity to make a stop. They had their timeouts.
Well,
when they got
it's
the
like
ball.
Scott's saying, it was a time of possession thing. Yeah, I mean they performed airtight, and we saw the Bucs not be airtight, and those little bit of mistakes cost them the game.
Which leans into Washington winning it more than the Bucs giving it away, in my opinion.
I think you're right to begin with. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying the Bucs made the timely mistakes, and the Commanders capitalized on them when they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fumble's a prime example of that. We have one team giving it away and the other one taking advantage of that opportunity. I mean, it was a swing of momentum, and that was it.
And to show you to show you how much respect I have for Jaden Daniels now is now that I'm in Florida, I kind of inheriting the Bucs as like a team I want to root for. And I'm watching this game, and every time Jaden Daniels would drop back to pass a throw, and he'd throw it, and I'm like, why is this so accurate? Please drop it. Somebody drop. I mean, he's so accurate with the ball. It's like every time he threw the ball, before I'd even see the ball go to the receiver, I knew it was going to be completed. It just the only way you're stopping this guy is you got to rush right up in his face and not let him get out of the pocket. Because if you let him get out of the pocket or sit back there forever, he's like Peyton Manning. He's going to pick you apart, like Brady, all the way down the field. This guy is deadly accurate, and he's like I don't know who the announcer was, but they were saying he looked like a 10-year veteran, just with his accuracy, just so cool and collective. And we're going to have some interesting conversations in the offseason on if you're a dynasty owner, what would, if you wanted to trade Jaden Daniels, what could you ask for him? Obviously, a lot of people feel like I'm not trading.
Oh, it's a minimum of 3 first to start that conversation.
But everybody has a price. I don't care who they are. Everybody.
That's true.
So it'd be interesting to see what people would be willing to.
So if you think Lamar is the 2 and Daniels is a 3 in dynasty, right there at the end of the season, I traded a Baker and a first and got Lamar. So you never know. It all depends on who you're dealing with.
Yeah,
Baker was on fire, and
Lamar before the season started, though, Lamar I don't think was at the 2 spot solidly like he is now.
He was going back into the first, and that's going to be our new exciting talk all offseason, man. We get to start talking about ADP, and we did enough drafts last year that we remember where everybody was going in ADP.
Yeah, Lamar, like you said, I mean, he was QB8.
Lamar was a late. Yeah.
I saw him drop to the early second in
sometimes back into the first.
Yeah, early second.
Sean, didn't you end up with Mahomes and Lamar in one of our dynasty startups?
I think I did actually. Yeah. Yep. And I traded Lamar for Josh to Sarah. Yep. That's exactly what happened.
Hey, all right, guys, one more thing before we move off of this game. We can't talk about how lucky the Commanders have been and not mention the doink. How often does a doink go in? Jesus.
Incredible, man.
Dude, and you could tell when it was going on, dude, I'm like, dude, that it's heading right for that damn goalpost, man. It's it's gonna be one of those moments. You never not get those. This is where I don't know if anybody out there is religious or not. No offense if you're not or anything, but to me, moments like that are why I know God exists. Because you don't get stuff like that. And you don't get the irony in life and all these random little moments that make you laugh and make you smile and all that kind of stuff like this without having some sort of divine intervention. Because that was epic. You don't finish a game like that without a doink. You know what I'm saying? That was just epic.
And to tell how nervous that kicker was. I don't know how many times he was parting his hair with that trying to put the helmet on. I mean, this guy was
that was so funny. I was like, bro, you're putting your helmet on. Why are you? Yeah. Why are you fixing? I said the same thing. I'm like, why are you fixing your hair to put your helmet on? This makes sense.
Yeah, Jerry says, what about the OCD adjustments from the kicker beforehand? Yep. He was like super, I mean, nervous.
I'm so glad that you guys all noticed that too. Because I literally said that to my girl we were watching it. I'm like, look at this guy like constantly adjusting his hair to put his helmet on. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, it was crazy.
I was saying the same thing to my kid, man. That was good times.
Oh, it's great, man. I love it how like across the country, man, like you can almost hear it like simultaneously, like, what the hell is he doing?
It's as bad as that dude that licks his hands all day.
Yeah, you knew he was super nervous. So yeah,
oh man, I'm so happy that it doinked through like that. Like I've met Scott Norwood in person, right? I had beers with this guy to the point to where he started crying talking to me about the kick. This is 20 years after he missed it. So, when I watch a kicker, doink off and miss kicks and stuff like that, and and have that kind of heartbreak, man, I feel for them at like such like a personal level. Like I want to reach out and like give him a hug. You know what I'm saying? Like it sucks. So anytime
especially when the season's on the line.
It's like, yeah, exactly. Anytime it doinks through, man, I'm always like
go, you heard,
go, bro, you go.
I forget the details, but earlier this season, I think it was Mahomes or something. He was yelling at his kicker, and he was like, "You have one fucking job."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
you know what? Kermit.
Every playoff
might have been pretty.
Every playoff year, there's always one Cinderella, and I think we can all agree that this year's Cinderella team is the Commanders from Washington.
How awesome would that be if they made it to the Super Bowl? Right? I mean, like or even the AFC Championship game. It sucks that they have to play the Lions now, because I would love to see a Lions Commanders NFC Championship game.
All right, let's move on. We got one more game to go over, and then we'll hit the our divisional predictions, and we are going to talk about the Monday night. I call it the Monday Night Massacre because Sam Darnold, he definitely saw ghosts. And, I kind of feel bad for this guy because everyone was saying on Twitter and everything, oh, he sucks and this and that. Sam Darnold didn't really have that bad of a game. I mean, if you think about it, he just looking at the box scores, he was, I mean, I know a lot of it was like GTP time at the end. He was 25.
Don't do the stats again, Scott. Don't do the stats again.
I mean, they're right there. 25 of 40, 245, a touch and a pick. But he got sacked 9 times.
9 times.
9 times. I don't care who's back there, J.J. McCarthy, whoever's back there. You get sacked 9 times, you're probably not going to win the game.
So basically what you're saying is that this time those weren't ghosts he was seeing.
No, they were real. No, they were real.
But I think a lot of his errant throws and stuff were a hangover from the last week's game against the Lions. So it was an awful.
You're trying to say that your Lions fucked him up so bad that it lasted a whole week?
Oh, for sure. For sure it did. For sure it did. So
sounds a little pretentious.
So unfortunately, I mean, the Rams played a good game. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be that kind of a blowout, especially Minnesota losing to the Lions. I just think that it was a huge letdown losing a game like that to the Lions, where you go from the 1 seed and a bye to like a road 14 team winning team, team. So I know we're going to talk about this because Sean and I had conversations about, what the Vikings are going to do with Sam Darnold next year. And I said, I remember saying
those conversations are recorded on air, so we can always.
I remember saying that I like Sam Darnold, but I need to see how he does. If he falters the first, if he doesn't get to the AFC champion or the NFC championship game, then we can start talking about maybe McCarthy. But if he gets there, then you're gonna have to have some conversations. Is this the guy that you're gonna move with going forward? Right now, it's not looking good. He cost himself probably quite a bit of money, but in his defense, his offensive line was atrocious. So, Alex, how did you see that game?
Yeah, I just saw a guy out there running for his life on every play, man. I talked about it earlier. The Rams were just they were hungry, dude. And there's a guy, Christian Roseboom. It's his sophomore year, and I know that because I drafted him in my IDP league last year. And he didn't have much hype coming into the league, man. He's done nothing but perform. Had a hell of a season, and he's coming for you, man. I mean, they're coming after him all game, and I did think that he imploded, and a lot of it does rest on Darnold. He had 2 weeks of consistent, horrible gameplay, and I think it cost him dearly, like you're saying.
That cost him a lot of money.
Yeah,
I mean that fool went from making like $30 million a year to being lucky to get 30 over 2.
And it makes a decision in Minnesota very easy. I mean, if McCarthy's ready to go, there's no reason why they would have Darnold there. McCarthy did, he was forced to, but he sat the whole year and watched the game and got caught up on the game plan.
He has working against him too is the Kevin O'Donnell factor. I think people are going to look at the fact that he was on the Vikings and like how many people has Kevin O'Connell like turned into like a superstar quarterback for a certain amount of games. Like that's going to work against Darnold when it comes to other teams looking at him as a long-term solution.
Yeah, he'll be a plug-in quarterback. I mean, he might go maybe Tennessee wants to try to make something next year.
I mean, there's a few teams that would love to have Sam Darnold right now. The Giants, possibly the Raiders. I mean, there's some teams that if they can't.
Do you think he gets signed during free agency, or does he wait till after the draft?
I think he'll get signed in free agency because everybody knows there's not really great quarterback draft prospects coming out this year. So I think he'll find a home somewhere.
I mean, his play actually hurts Minnesota because Minnesota, obviously they wanted him to play good because if their whole intentions was to move on from him, you want him to play well so you can possibly make a deal with somebody, hold out, look for somebody in the draft that maybe doesn't get up and get a quarterback and do something like the Lions did with drafting Jahmyr Gibbs and trading DeAndre Swift away. I mean, the Vikings could hold out, wait till the draft, or let him go in free agency. But yeah, it was just unfortunate.
Wasn't he on a 1-year deal, so he goes into free agency at the new league year start? Unless they franchise him.
I mean, yeah, but I don't think they're going to franchise him.
No, absolutely not. But so he's going to be a free agent. They don't have any cards to that play anymore if he's going to be a free agent come March.
I mean, he could do one. I mean, Sam Darnold could. I mean, if he doesn't think he's going to get the right money, I mean, I don't see him really staying in Minnesota because they're not going to pay him what he could get on the open market. So he's, you're probably right.
This opens the door more for that with his play over the last 2 weeks because now he's lost enough money where they might be able to afford him as their backup bridge guy and keep him around because he might want to stick around there, like in who knows whatever with the scenario, but he could be there if McCarthy's not ready in the beginning of the season. He might like it. He might stick around if they, they give him 13 over 2 years.
I think if he's not going to accept 13 million. I mean, he won 14 games. I mean,
What do you think he's going to get from let's say the Raiders, right? What do you think the Raiders would pay him?
I don't know how to answer that.
I know, right? It's a tough question.
I think he goes to Pittsburgh to go 9-8.
So no, it'll be interesting.
You had to say it.
It'll be interesting. Like I said, I didn't think the Vikings were gonna fall on their face like that. I thought they would go in there and win that game, but
let's talk about how well the Rams played though, and do they have a shot against the Eagles, or do you feel like there's an emotional letdown coming up because they kind of ran their tanks dry with that game and everything they went through?
Well, let's segue into that. Then. Let's talk about the division games next week. And Sean, did you got any of your predictions?
I can give them to you guys on the fly. As you know, I've been kind of going through some stuff the last few days, so I haven't had a chance to really break them down.
Well, let's start.
You'll get my on the fly predictions for sure.
All right, we'll start with that one. We got the LA Rams going to Philly. I got this game.
We cover our last week's before we do that, Scott. Should we go into last week's predictions and outcomes from what we picked and on the pod?
If you guys want to do that first.
Well, I mean, we should before we go in, so everybody knows who's in the lead. You know what I mean? Because
that's a good way to bridge that.
Okay. All right. Well, I know why Sean wanted to get to this section first. I mean, he's just as bad as Connor.
Hey man,
Yeah.
I want to get a little bit of love right now, dude, because I did a good job, man. With the exception of the Chargers, my scores and my picks were dead on. Or I wouldn't say dead on, but closer than everybody else by far. So I
All right,
don't
well,
know what it is, I feel like.
let's give Sarah M21, a producer, credit for this slide. She worked very hard on it. Looks very colorful and nice.
Yeah.
So
And-
go ahead.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Go ahead,
And
Sean.
another shout out to Sarah. We talked about Jaden Daniels without mentioning that she won our podcast, our managers league on the back of Jaden Daniels. So she's also a championship winner this year.
Yeah, and we did
That's
give
right.
her
After we all gave her mess
we
about
gave her
drafting him
slack
early.
about that.
I
Yeah,
know.
like, we got
Poetic justice.
100%.
Yeah, we did give her some slack on that. So
Yeah, she really showed us.
all right, Sean, go ahead and break down the. Now, why don't you explain the game first of all, so the gamers know what we're talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, these are just our predictions from last week. So this is just what we, as a pod crew, what we all predicted for our games last week, and kind of just keeping a running total on where we're at for this. Separate from our playoff game that we're going to cover here a little bit later. That is, going through more of a golf tournament basically. So that'll be fun to talk about. I can't wait to do that. This basically will give you kind of guys an idea on what we picked last week, and I wanted to make sure we covered this because, minus the first game, only two of us were on point. Everybody else was, they wasn't their best week. We'll put it that way. So you start out with the first game. You got the Chargers, the Texans and Chargers. Of course, four of us, myself, Scott, Sarah, JoJo, all picked the Chargers, and we lost. The only one who won that game was Connor. I know. Thank God he's not here to brag about it. So Connor has the Texans. So far, Connor started out in the lead. Didn't look good for all of us. Everybody but Connor picked the Ravens. So it turned right around when it came to the second game, and we were right back in it. Now, my score was closer than everybody else. I had 28-13. Scott had 28-18. Sarah, JoJo, and Connor did not want to give us scores, just gave us spreads. So it's between me and Scott when it comes to scores. I beat him. On the next game, Bills. Myself, Scott, Sarah. Only JoJo had the audacity to pick. I mean, JoJo, I thought we were buddies, dude. Feel free not to call me next time you need a ride from the airport. No, I'm just kidding, buddy. Call me anytime you're in town. But then Connor, he also picked the Bills. So we're looking at basically a 1-1 across the board with the exception of, 2-1 across the board with the exception of JoJo. And JoJo is now 1-2. But going into the third game, we had Eagles across the board with the exception of Connor, because we know the Cheesehead had to pick the Cheeseheads. So Connor ended up sacrificing a loss, picking his hometown team. And thankfully for myself, because he'd be ahead of me and I wouldn't be so excited about this segment. Next up, we had the Commanders-Bucks game. Of course, myself being as smart as I am, I picked the Commanders. Scott, being, just as smart as me, just not this day, decided to pick the Bucks. Sarah followed Scott's suit, so I blame Scott for Sarah's loss. JoJo, he decided to roll with me and Connor and take the Commanders.
At least you guys had it close, Bucks fans.
Yes.
I picked the Bucks too, so mine aren't up here, but I went. I think I had the exact same picks as Scott here.
Yeah, and it knocked both of you guys out of our playoff golf tournament. So
Yeah.
You guys, you hitched your wagon to the wrong, leader. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here, guys. You know what I'm talking about. But basically, you should have followed me. Oh man! And then the final game, of course, myself, I took the Rams, knowing that the Rams are going to go in there and dominate, because I watched Sam Darnold fall apart the week before, and sure enough, that's what happened. Scott decided to take the Vikings along with Sarah, who followed suit with Scott again. Scott led her into the weeds 2 games in a row and dropped her out of the rankings. JoJo followed the leader and got himself another win. So he got the Rams. And then Connor went ahead and picked the Vikings. Thanks, Connor. So if you guys were keeping tabs, you know that I'm ahead. Looks like by 2 games at this point over Connor, and 3 games over Scott, and 3 games over Sarah. Or no, 2 games over Sarah. So JoJo, he is right there with me, except for he decided to go against my Bills, so he is right there with Connor. So that's our breakdown, guys. So going into next week, obviously I'm ahead of Scott. Scott's probably out of it. I'm sorry, Scott. I love you, but you're out of it. Sarah might have a shot. JoJo might have a shot. I'm sorry, Sarah's out. Connor might have a shot. JoJo might have a shot. We'll see how.
So we had 30 people in the playoff game that came into the room, and they made the same prediction and gave us their winners and stuff. And how many did we end up with, Sean?
Out of the 30, how many that survived?
Yeah.
22.
22. So Scott and I were in the bottom 8.
Yeah, we were in the bottom 8. That's how bad we were.
And so
2 out of 8. Yeah, so that means that like 1 out of 4, basically.
So that was hole 1, and now we're going into divisional rounds, and we're going into hole 2.
Yes,
exactly. Do we want to break that down? I can pull that up here real quick.
Yeah, let's do that and transition into next week.
This weekend. I love it. So this is our hole 3 pick, guys. Or I'm sorry, this is hole 3. We need hole 2, don't we?
Oh yeah, we need hole 2. So I'll filibuster right now. What we're doing is
we're picking a little bit later, guys. We'll go over that later because I need to set that one up for you.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
All right, so going to the you want to go into divisional before you?
Let's talk about our games. Let's talk about our game predictions.
Well, yeah, for next week.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's start off. We'll go from the first game to the last game. So we'll start off with the Houston travels to Kansas City. It's a 41.5 over under. Kansas City's minus 8.5. Elements outdoors. It's going to be cold, 33 degrees. I got Kansas City 24-17. I think they get it done. I don't think it's a super high scoring game, but I think Houston just has enough to get it done on offense along with defense. It's hard to beat Kansas City at their home stadium. So that's who I got. What about you, Alex?
I think the gap's going to be a little bit bigger. I think it's going to be more around the lines of I would say 27-14. We see what Kansas City does is they like to take away your number one, and without Nico Collins, Stroud is a average at best. He had a great game last week. He had 280 plus yards, and if that interception in the end zone was a touchdown, it would look a lot better in the box score. But we've seen Stroud implode, and we know what the Chiefs defense can do to a team, and I think that we're going to get one of those games here. So I see 27-14.
What about you, Sean?
I mean, God, I really, really, really want the Texans to win this game because then that means if Buffalo wins, then the AFC Championship game is in Buffalo. So, of course, I want to sit here and tell you guys the Texans are going to win this game. I just can't do it because I'm ahead in the predictions and I don't want to fall behind. So I think I'm going to have to stick with you guys and go with the Chiefs, unfortunately. And I think it's going to be closer than Alex is talking about. I do think the Texans will come to play. I think it'll be like what we've probably seen out of these two teams in the playoffs in the past. It's going to be that, Texans take the lead early and like storm out there and do great. And then the Chiefs just methodically come back and beat them like they do all the time. So I anticipate, we'll go with like a 27-24 Chiefs win.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, I agree with Jerry. Jerry's got 21-13. I think it's going to be a little bit low scoring, tight match. I think both teams are going to try to run the ball, play good defense. It's going to be cold outdoors. I don't think it's going to be the aerial attack with these quarterbacks. Both teams have been good with the run. They've been good on defense. So yes.
Now, Scott, before you lock in your prediction, are you sure you don't want to make any changes? Because I know last week you were pretty solid and it didn't work out. So I just want to make sure.
I already said 24-17 Chiefs.
Well, it would be smart for us to say whatever Sean says, apparently. Whatever you say, Sean, we're gonna.
If that's how you want to approach it, I'm not gonna argue with that. It seems to be working so far for me, anyway.
Hey, one of the things that I got right, and this was a horrible year for me in fantasy, but one of the things that I got right, I think, is that I bought Xavier Worthy when he was at his lowest, man, and he's coming through. So I'm excited to see how he performs in this game. Hopefully they can get on the same page and hit on some of those deep shots, man. That's what I want to see.
He's got to step up, man. He's
looked a lot better. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think he's an alpha, but I think he could be a Devontae Smith.
Yeah. Trevor, Pacheco or Hunt? Oh, yeah.
That's a good question right now. I mean, I would have to lean Hunt, but I mean, Andy Reid is so dang tricky. I could see him just being like, Pacheco's been good, but I don't want anybody to know it. So I'm just going to keep him hidden until the playoffs.
I think it's gonna be Pacheco. Pacheco's gonna. He's the grinder. He runs hard. Yeah, I mean Hunt's gonna be involved, but I mean I just think if we want to grind the game out, it's Pacheco.
Right.
Kareem Hunt missed out on all the Chiefs.
It's gonna be his 50-50. You know.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, we'll go to the next game. We'll go to the nightcap. We have the Cinderella Washington Commanders traveling to the.
You look very concerned, Scott. Like the look on your face while you're saying that just has like this kind of concern to it.
No, they're traveling to the Lions Den, and you're giving the Lions a week off to recover. They're going to get some players back. Monty says he's ready. I think the Lions are going to do what the Buccaneers could not do, and they're going to just run the ball right down the Commanders' throat. This is the way you beat the Commanders. You run the ball. You keep the ball out of Jaden's hand. I think the slipper finally falls. The clock strikes 12. Turning into a pumpkin. Jaden's had a great year, but you know what? The buck stops this week in Detroit. 34-23 Lions. They pretty much boat race them early by running the ball, control the clock, time possession, and I could see about 275 yards rushing for the Detroit Lions. Go ahead, Sean. What do you think?
You know, as much as I want to mess with you right now and say that I don't think the Lions are going to win, I can't do it because I want the Lions in the Super Bowl against the Bills. So I'm going to go Lions with the win. Close game. I think the Commanders they're going to have Lady Luck on their side. They're going to have some magic moments in this game, and they're going to keep it close. I think it's going to be a really fun, exciting game to watch. I'm going to go with like a 38-34 Lions.
Okay, now the line is -9 Detroit and a massive 55.5 over under. What do you think, Alex?
I'm with you. I think the Lions score 34 points in this game. They're just so efficient on offense. Yeah, no, Scott said 34. That's what the number I had. I think the Commanders, I think they trail the whole game, and you know their luck comes up short, and they end with 27 points on those last minute garbage time touchdowns. But the Lions are just they're so fine tuned, man. You know they're airtight, and
I feel like there's a sense of urgency in the Lions right now. Like there's like a
yes.
This is our time kind of a moment with them. And, you know, just like the Bills, I think like that's why I really want the two of them in the Super Bowl, because it'll just be such a fun, exciting time to have those two teams that have that type of grit and desire to actually get to the promised land, you know?
Yeah. But I think this is the end of the line for Jaden. And I think it's going to be a great game. That's all I'm hoping for. But I do think the Lions take it 34-27.
All right, yeah, and you know what? The Lions kind of caught a break. I mean, you know, you never want to say, "Oh, I wish I'm playing this team," because they're not as good as you. But I don't think the Lions wanted to play the Vikings again. You know, that would be twice in 2 weeks, and you don't really want to play a team like that right away again. I think it would have been a bad not saying that the Lions would have lost, but I'd much rather see the Commanders than the Vikings again. So yeah, I just think I
actually don't agree with that at all. As a Lions fan, I would want it the exact opposite direction, and I would want to beat the crap out of those Vikings again, because they're obviously like a downtrodden squad right now, and those Commanders are like, like I said, I mean, they got a 13th player out there. This is like angels in the infield.
Yeah. The one thing the Lions are not good with, though, and I'll say that in the Commanders' corner, they're not good with running quarterbacks. I mean, that happened when we played Josh Allen and the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen just destroyed us running the ball. So the Lions aren't the greatest when it comes to containing running
They
quarterbacks.
they used to be. They used to be to start the season.
Yeah, and that's why I say I think they're going to. Ben Johnson will not make the same mistake that Todd Bowles did by not running the ball. They're going to run the ball.
Yeah,
They're going to
no,
run the ball often, and don't be shocked if the Lions, if they win the coin toss, they take the ball and they just run it right down into the end zone.
yeah, like you said, boat race. You know, we all know what that means. I think that's the kind of game that they're going to come out and play is just score quick, fast, and consistently.
Yep, for sure. So, all right, let's move on to the Sunday matchups. And we're going to leave the one game for last. So we're going to
I know. It's the greatest game of the weekend. That's why it's the last game on the slate.
So we're going to go with the LA Rams traveling all the way across the country to play Philadelphia and those crazy fans. 44 over under, Phillies -6. It's going to be about 40 degrees with the elements. I'll start with Alex. Alex, what's your predictions?
So if you're watching the Lions game, they had a narrative up there where they were talking about the trade for Stafford and everything that the Lions got out, and how the Rams got Matthew Stafford. You know, we saw last week this is a hungry Rams team, and the Eagles. You know, they're here. They're a good team. You know, they have a lot of skill players, but I think the Rams want it more. And I think this is the perfect stage for the Rams to come and upset the Eagles, and and those fans, man, you said it. Though you can, it's like synonymous with Florida man. You know, in 2025, it's going to be Eagles fan. It's. I said it in our Discord, like no disrespect to the Eagles fans that are, you know, just out there for the game and stuff, but they got to stop making the news, man.
All right, Sean, what about you?
So in my opinion, like this is honestly the hardest game to predict this weekend. Like the way that the Eagles played that game, the way the Rams played that game, you know, there's definitely like they're a lot closer than I think their previous matchup would indicate. So I feel like this is going to be one of those scenarios that, you know, it's going to come down to you know, extenuating circumstances, right? Like the weather is going to be a factor, I think, in this game. You know, the Rams are not used to this scenario. They're not a cold weather team. You know, they play in LA. They don't really have a whole lot of cold weather history as far as like this group in general. So, you know, I just don't think that, you know, they're going to be able to fly all the way to Philly in that environment, in that weather, and sustain the type of emotional top end that they had in the week that they played against the Vikings. So I think in the end, you know, as much as I hate to say it, because I do think that they're vulnerable right now, especially the way that Hurts is playing and losing Dean and what's going on with AJ Brown. I do think that there's room for the Eagles to easily lose this game. So I wouldn't have a hard time taking the Eagles to lose this game without a problem, but I just can't trust that the Rams are going to be able to sustain everything with all of these factors that they're dealing with right now. So,
but this is a team that knows how to win. They've been here before. They've been on the stage. You know, Stafford. I've always said Stafford is one of the most underrated quarterbacks out there because the dude, he's a winner. You know, and oh, by the way, I say 2017 Rams. That would be my prediction. You can pencil that in. But they know how to do it, and I know what you're saying. The environment's going to be horrible for them, but they're a pro team, man. They've been here before.
I mean, I get that. I get what you're saying there. I also think the Eagles are a pro team that has been there before, and this is their house. So I don't think that gives them enough of a leg up to make it over the hurdles that they're going to have to go through here, because the guy that we haven't even talked about yet, who's going to be the biggest factor in this game, is Saquon. You know, and the way that Saquon's running that ball behind Mailata in that line, you know, they don't even need Jaden to complete passes in the first half to blow teams out. So, this is a scenario where I think it plays into the strengths more for the Eagles than it does for the Rams. So for me, I'm going with a slight Eagles victory on this one, and I'm going to probably put it at like a 24-21 type of scenario.
Well, I think you got it right. I think this game really does depend on Saquon's performance. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I mean, I think football obviously is a game of emotions. I think last week the Rams had a lot of emotions, got displaced, had to go to Arizona to play a game. It was very hype. A lot of, like I said, a lot of emotions. They came out and they won that game. I think a lot of, obviously with not only emotions, but they're a very good football team. But this is a new week. It's a different team that they're facing. They're facing a team that has a sour taste in their mouth from how they performed last year in the playoffs. They were the hottest team down the stretch in the NFC, going into the elements, traveling across the country. I watched Matthew Stafford a lot in Detroit. He's not very good in the cold. So I think after what happened last week with Philly, where they weren't their best, I think they're going to be getting the ball to Saquon. They're going to be getting the ball to A.J. Brown. I got it 27-20 Philly. I think they just get enough done against a pretty good Rams offense. But I think their defense is going to show up. They're going to get after Matthew Stafford, and they're going to and if you remember last time Saquon had, I think he had like 250 yards rushing the last time they played against them. I mean, he went off on them. So I like Philly in this game, but only by 7 points.
I mean, I like it. I'm just about where I'm at with it too. So I definitely agree with you.
All right,
this is my upset pick of the weekend.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm not saying.
Yeah, you're lone wolfing it right here.
Yeah. You're lone wolfing it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, we can't agree on everything,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. So
we might not agree on the next one.
I can tell you that right now.
Let's go to the game that I definitely think this is going to be the most exciting game of the weekend.
Go Bills.
So I don't know who should. I know we have to let Sean go last. So yeah. I'll start. I'll go to Alex and I'll go to Sean. So
I'm the defense. I get the last call.
I almost want to say this is going to be, and I'm going to probably come out and say it. I think this is going to be an overtime game. I think the score is going to be 27-24, and I think I'm going to take the most complete team, offensively, defensively, and this game comes down to running the football and stopping the run. And the Baltimore Ravens, they're the best at both. They can stop the run. They're one of the top teams in the league at stopping the run. They can run with Derek. They can run with Lamar. Now, I love Josh Allen, but I just think he needs more weapons, especially in the receiving core. I don't like Amari Cooper. They did get better run defensively, but they're not there yet. I know they're playing at home. I feel bad for Josh. It's a bad matchup this round. They really needed that one seed, but I got in overtime on a Derrick Henry 40-yard touchdown burst in overtime, 27-24. The nail.
First of all, that's not possible. By the way, Scott, you cannot have an overtime score with a 3-point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up my score. My bad. 40-yard run to set up a field goal. How's that?
Okay.
All right, good. All right. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh man, there's
like
first of all anybody.
I'm done.
Anybody that says they know how this game is going to turn out, they're full of crap. There's this game. You have the Baltimore Ravens. To me, have always been like a finesse team. Like they're just so smooth the way Lamar is. He's so fluid all the time. But then they went and acquired Derrick Henry, who's like the haymaker. So they have the hook and the haymaker. And I think the Bills just have the haymaker. I don't know where their finesse is coming from. They have Josh Allen to punch you in the mouth, and they have big strikes to whoever he chooses. But I think it comes down to.
Sorry, I just had something.
I think it comes down to the Ravens defense, and I think they're just a little bit more talented than the wide receiver crew that the Bills have, and I think that's going to be the difference in this game. So, Sean, as much as I hate to go against the grain, man, I'm going to take the Ravens here, and I think it's going to be a good game, but it's going to end up being about 30 to 24, I guess is what I'll dial it in as. I just think that the Ravens aren't going to be stopped, and I think that they're going to find a way to slow down the Bills just enough to pull ahead.
Yep. All right, before we get into
I know. Are we still friends?
Lone wolfing over here, buddy. Before we get into Sean's picks or Sean's pick, well, JoJo.
I mean, everybody knows my pick. Let me just explain why, of course. Yeah. But everybody knows where I'm going.
But JoJo sent in. He sent in KC 28-17, Detroit 40-37, Eagles 23-17, and Ravens 27-23. So JoJo took the Ravens. It looks like Jerry, he's on your side, Sean. 20.
Yeah, he had me on my side, and then he goes and talks about Lamar winning MVP and just completely loses me.
So go ahead,
I love Sean. Jerry. Come on, buddy. You know Josh deserves it more. He didn't have a Derrick Henry behind him.
So
I think the winner of the game gets an MVP, obviously.
That's what it should be, too.
So go ahead, be the lone wolf.
Oh man, I love this place. This is my favorite spot to be as a Bills fan because this is pretty much where we've lived our life. So I'm taking the Bills in this one. I do think it'll be a good game, but I do think the Bills will pull it out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy Scott's score of 27-24, but I'm going to go with the other direction. I'm going to say the Bills are going to get 27-24 win. And the reason I'm saying that is because of multiple factors that we talked about. Everybody's looking at the week 4 game. I don't want to rehash what you guys have said. Everything you've said about the Ravens is great. Everything's awesome. Like they are a good team. They are definitely the second best team in the AFC right now. But I cannot put them above my squad. It's either the homerism in me or what, but I definitely cannot because like the Bills have a man in charge of that team named Josh Allen that will literally take things on his back and carry 11 defenders over a goal line if he has to. And I just think that this is the season that Josh has the determination in him to make it happen. Lamar is great. Don't get me wrong. I think Lamar is great. I think that Lamar does not have that type of just real, like, down just to the bones grit like Josh does when it comes down to it. And I think Josh will carry the squad past them because otherwise they are very similar as far as, like, team in general. They're both good teams. They both have better offenses with, good defenses but not great defenses. They both have suspect secondaries, good linebackers, good up front lines. So, there's definitely a lot of game across the team. So, I don't have any kind of, hate towards the Ravens or anything. I honestly do believe that the Bills will pull this game out and it will be close and they will win. And I think they'll carry that momentum right into a dominant victory the following week and make their way to the big game. And then, you guys are going to see me on a plane and my next podcast at that point would be holding a phone in New Orleans, telling you guys how excited I am to be here.
Before we move on to our playoff game, I want to ask you guys about does that bother you guys that a team that's 14-2 has to be a road team and play a team that's has a lower seed? Like what happened to the Vikings? I mean, that could have happened to the Lions. I don't. Do you guys like that, the way the playoff format is set up like that? They got to find a better way where, I know it's because of the divisions and stuff, but I mean, do you guys like that?
I don't mind it. The reason I say that is because, like, every time that we talk about this type of scenario play out, the team with the lower record wins. So like if that was the case, then these teams with the high records would be dominating the shit out of these teams, and they would be useless games, and they would be boring, and nobody would want to watch. But like a lot of times, these teams are winning those games. The Seahawks Saints back in the day, right? The Bucks came in as a 9-win team one year, I think, and won their first game against Dallas. I want to say, like, it's not uncommon at all for those teams to lose that first week. So to me, like, there's a reason you're the wild card. You know what I mean? If you really wanted to have a home game, then you work your ass off and you get that fucking home game and win your division. I don't care how good the teams are. You're going to beat every team in the league to win this, right? So it shouldn't make a difference. So to me, I don't mind it because I think it adds credence to all the division games and like really makes that like mean more.
Yeah,
and it's almost useless to have teams playing division games all the time.
I liken it to like league median when everyone's always campaigning for league median. Like, is that like a more calculated alternative to the way we have it? Well, maybe so, but any given Sunday is an element that I like to keep in the game. There's an element of luck. There's an element of advantages and disadvantages for teams, and I don't think that's anything that. I mean, we've had it for so long in the NFL. I don't think it's something that really needs to be addressed that badly.
If they change that, they have to change the entire schedule.
So I have a 32 team league and I have a 16 team league, and they're divided up into 4 divisions. And so what our proposal is for next year is to actually have these divisions face off against each other to either begin or end the season, so that we have that division rivalry always going. And it's like you were just saying, we want that. That's what like propels the emotional aspect of football. And I don't think there's any reason powerful enough for them to, actually put into place another plan to get rid of that.
Plus, when you have like, situations like NFC, AFC right now, like you get scenarios a lot of times where, the top seeds don't play each other until the Super Bowl. And so like you'll have these teams like the is this team better? Is that team better? And you actually get to figure it out with the final game of the year. You'll lose all that with losing divisions and everything. So, to me, I like it the way it is. I don't mind it if it gets to the point where these teams are constantly kicking the crap out of that 4th seed and it becomes a non-competitive game and that 4th seed is almost a waste of time, then yes, something needs to happen. But as long as those teams are constantly like pulling out these crazy victories like they do, I mean, they've given us some of the greatest playoff moments that we've had in games like that. So I can't say it hasn't worked.
Okay, interesting. All right, great. All right, guys. That was the divisional matchup. We'll get into our AFC Championship stuff next week. We're going to move into our first annual Ballsville playoff game, and I'm going to let Sean go ahead. Or Alex, you want to break that our playoff game down, or Sean, do you want to do it?
Well, I'll start it off. What we're doing right now. So this is a pilot thing. There's 30 people that started playing. Originally, we wanted 24 people just to have like a nice square number that we can break down. 4 weeks of playoffs. We wanted to break it down to finalists and then have like a face-off for the Super Bowl, which is what we're still doing. Sean's done an excellent job of putting a golf style theme to the way that we're scoring these. So basically the overall theme throughout the whole game is you want to call your shot. You want to be as accurate as you can. If you hit the nail on the head and if you predict a number of 7 and the number 7, then you're going to get a -1 on your scorecard, and you're going to have this scorecard that's going to follow you. And if you don't make the cut line demonstrated here, you're going to be, severed from the competition and your game is over. And then, about 30 to, we want 50%, but it ended up being about 65% of the first round moved on. And now we're going into a round where you're picking your players and you're creating a fantasy theme. So every week it's something different, but the overall purpose stays the same, where you want to just try to stay accurate. And Sean here has done a great job. Yeah. Sean's done a great job of putting it all in a visual form. These spreadsheets are really impressive. And if you guys aren't going to the website and checking out what the new weekly updates are, you're doing yourself a disservice. That's the best way to follow along with all this stuff. Like the playoff games, we can go ahead and update that, probably here in the next couple of days, so you guys can see details of how it's going if you're not in it.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Sean, talk about your sheets.
Yeah, and we had how much traffic did we have just that one day when we had playoff format when we announced it?
Well, that wasn't for playoffs. What we did is we had orphans, right? So usually,
the orphans.
Usually For dynasty leagues, we get those situated. That's game number 1. So as soon as we enter the off season, we get those situated. Right now, all the leagues have been rolled over. Draft orders have been set. League Safe is out there. It's already like 34% full. So everyone's already taking initiative to pay now, even though the deadline's not till April 1st. But we had orphans, and we created a spreadsheet, and put all our orphans up on the website, and we opened it up like, hey, come look at the rosters, and if you like, there's a link there for the league. You can join, and as long as nobody's laid claim to the roster, you can claim it, and then you can pay for the roster. You pay 1 year to rebuild. You pay 2 years to fully buy in and compete, and then there's details about overlap with the funds there. But we had 10 orphans open, and within 2 hours, they were all done, and the website had seen 260 views and broken the 5,000 views record for this website that's been up, less than 6 months. So that is wildly impressive. So thank you all for that.
Yep. Thank
And
you
we
all.
want to keep that going.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So, all right, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So as Alex explained to you guys, we have our scorecard here. So this is after week 1. And, for our week 1 scoring, we kind of just basically, it was a real basic week. Everybody just picked the games, and they got either 1 stroke added or 1 stroke taken away based on wins or losses. And this is where we're at. Batmax and Phil both actually killed it this week and ended up 6 under because they picked every game correctly. So congratulations to the two of you.
No
Good job, Ricky.
Yeah,
right. That's pretty epic right there, man. Pick every game like that, and especially in the playoffs, because playoff games are not easy to pick. So Jay Morris, 410, myself, C-Bomb Zoobs, Jojo Braden, Bagney, Jerry B, Jimbo's Bimbos, Jimmy Wojo, Short Stack, D Northern Wizard, Gallows 18, GLC 76, P Groot 31, ZB Dubs 808, Big Time Z 420, the Mamas Papa, Grundog, and JM Hubs all made the cut. All right, so basically the way it's working out is you, as long as you tie the cut line, you will make the cut. So following into the second week, what we're going to do is a different scoring system for the second week. And what we're doing on hole 2, so every week is a hole. Guys, this is a golf tournament, so every week is a hole. We're going to have some good old fantasy fun with a twist. What everybody's doing is, we already have multiple people have already submitted this. Everybody's picking a lineup: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end. They're going to base it on the Ballsville scoring system. And they're also picking as a tie break of whatever team they think is going to win, whatever game they're playing, and the score that they're going to receive. So, I'm picking the Bills and 38, right? That's an example. So the top 50% are going to move on to hole 3. Same thing. If you tie the cut line, you'll go ahead and move forward as well. Each player is going to receive minus a stroke. So you're going to get, -1 for every 5 points the fantasy player you choose picks. So if your fantasy player scores 19 points, it's still going to be the same as 15 points. It has to be in increments of 5 to get the next stroke. Okay, guys? If your player doesn't get to 5 at all, which, I mean, if you're picking a player who doesn't get to 5 right now, like, I'm sorry, man, that's like horribly bad luck for you. But you're gonna get a +1 stroke on that one. You're basically bogeying that hole because that's kind of shitty. But otherwise, you're going to always receive negative strokes based on how many points your players score, and it's going to be tallied up on our end. And then if you guys end up tied, we're going to have the tie break to utilize for those portions. So, as we're going to move forward with that, we're going to add that to your score from before. So the guys that are 6 under, they're going to stay at 6 under plus whatever under they end up for this week, and so on. The way this is set up for you guys is, this week is meant to get you guys a bunch of understrokes, because week 3, hole 3, is going to be taking a lot of strokes. So you got to be prepared for hole 3. This is the week to do it. So we're hoping that you guys get a bunch of, negative numbers going into this week, because you're going to need them for the next one. Yes. So that's the basic concept of what we're doing here, guys. We're going to roll this through again. This is a pilot that we're doing. It's our first time doing it. That's why it's free. That's why it's a giveaway, for you guys, as far as free entries into next year's games, because we really want to fine tune this. And thanks to a lot of you guys, you've helped us, edit through these different changes as we're going through week to week. And it's been very useful. And it's really allowed us to kind of see like the formation of this game, like, come to play. So by 2025, this will be something that we're going to add like a pay structure to, that you guys are really going to love. And it's going to turn out great. So far, it's been amazing. And I think other than, Alex and Scott being knocked out, which is why they're not talking right now, this has been a really fun experience.
No, even being out of it's still very fun. It's so cool because this is just a concept that we were sitting around talking about, and then it all just kind of manifested in this physical form, and now we get to see it play out in action live, and we get live responses from the players. So, it's a weird thing when you conceive something. It's the three of us, and we conceive something, and then you kind of throw it out there, and you see how it's going to react, and then you gotta worry about if you missed a detail that sends it all come crumbling down and stuff. So for us, it's fun because we're running it and watching how it pans out, how each round gets scored.
This is the second baby of our tripod. We have we have the triathlon. She went from here to here, and then by the end of the year we'll be centered to high school. And meanwhile, the playoff game is back in the crib still. Just getting going, and
it's our second baby. And you guys realize this would be game number 6 for Ballsville.
Yeah.
Ballsville Nation, baby, become a citizen now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the show. We want to thank you guys again. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. Please head over to the ballsvillegame.com.
Before we go, Scott, can I say one thing before we
go
out here? So I just want to mention something that is near and dear to me right now. Those of you that know, I really appreciate everything you guys have been supporting me through this. But I just, for everybody who doesn't know, I had earlier today, I had to put down my dog, the one that you can see behind me here. This is my first and my last photo of my puppy, and this dog was through so much with me. He was 14 years old. He was 2 weeks from our 14-year anniversary of the weekend I got him, and it's been really difficult to go through this, and I feel I don't know, I feel ashamed to kind of feel like I do, because there's so many people that are going through so much right now, and so I don't want to focus on the loss as much as the enjoyment that he brought to me. And I want to say to everybody who's going through everything, our buddy Jimbo's Bimbos out there, everybody in California who lost everything in their homes, all the people up north who are going through all these freezing cold weathers and dealing with this stuff on a daily basis. Like, just try to, when you're going through these things, try to think about all the great things that you've had in life, and the people that you might have lost, or the animals that you might have lost, or anything out there, and all the great times, and try to remember the fun and the times that made you laugh and smile and enjoy life, and realize that these are the reasons that we do what we do. Like where we're putting this pod out here, why we go to work every day and clean everybody's pools in town, why we worked our butt off to raise a family and do all the great things that everybody out there is doing, is so that you can have moments of greatness. And anytime there's sadness out there, try to think of the greatness, because those moments will be what carries you through all these times. And I want to say thank you to all of you guys out there that have helped me through this. It's been very difficult for me, but I really, really appreciate you guys. And thank you all so much.
That was well said and much love. So yeah. I didn't want to forget that either. But yeah, the people, we want to give a shout out to the people out in California going through the wildfires, just like we did when down here in Florida when we had the hurricanes. I think it's worse of what's going on out there in LA. So we give a shout out to the players that out in LA. But like you said, Ballsville, we're all about the players, and we're all about family, community, and friends. So as a matter of fact, I think I might have told Sean, and I think I told Alex, this weekend I'm going to see Jimbo's Bimbos for the first time.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I'm meeting up with him on Saturday, and
that's so cool.
I'm taking some pictures, and we'll have a drink, and he's going to show me around his new house, that he's putting together, and show me the stove he bought with the money that we were able to raise.
You got to take some video while you're out there, brother, and
some pictures. So yeah, we're not just about making podcasts and then just closing the laptop and going to do our thing. We're constantly doing things, trying to meet up with fellow Ballsville gamers, guys that help with the podcast, doing this, that. So Yeah, it's a big community,
Well,
and yeah,
I,
we couldn't do this without you guys.
I gotta say real quick, man, because you guys are talking about the community that we're building here, and this is honestly, this is the baby, this community, because we've been doing this. We're going into year 5, but in all reality, the magnitude of this kind of kicked in 24. So players like Jimbo, I mean, I was closing out all the leagues, because payouts, they're a mother effer. I was closing out all the leagues, and there was a message from Jimbo's that I missed in our Katana League, and he had put a picture of his stove, and he had given a shout out to Ballsville and said, "Hey, you guys, look at this is where your donation went. Our new stove just arrived," and this was right before Thanksgiving. And so to think that this little thing that we have going on here is keeping our friend fed, when he cooks a dinner in that oven, he'll think about us. I mean, that right there, it's mind blowing. And
Yeah.
so and then we have Jojo who got tickets to the Charger game for Sarah, and Sean helping out Jojo over there in Vegas. I mean, and now you're going to go see Jimbo. I mean, we're building a community here, and hopefully it's something that continues to bloom and last and stuff. And honestly, as much as we put into it, the success of it really depends on you guys.
Yeah, no, well said. Yep, it definitely does for sure. But yeah, we just want to wish you guys the best this weekend on your all your games this weekend, and anyone that's still surviving in our Ballsville playoffs. I know Alex and I are just going to be enjoying the games this weekend and
Spectators.
as spectators. So until next week, for my co-host Sklem, for our El Presidente Alex, I am your host Scott Fitzgerald Ludes for Sale on Sleeper, and until next week, folks, we are out.
Thank you, guys.
That's a wrap.